Start off just by introducing myself. My name is Amy Brownlee. I am the district librarian for Sterling Public Schools. Sterling is a small 2A district in central Kansas. We're about half an hour from Hutchinson. So today I'm going to be talking about using Google Classroom in the school library. I have to confess that I really hadn't used it much until this past spring. I knew what Google Classroom was, but I kind of thought, for as much work as it would be to set up my students in Google Classroom and teach them how to use it, I didn't know if I would get enough benefit from it. But especially since in the spring when we went to remote learning, all of our students grades 3 through 12 started using Google Classroom, so they were already familiar with it. So I started kind of relearning about it, and I feel like it's really been streamlined and made a lot more user-friendly since the first time I was checking into it. So I can see a lot of potential for using it, not only whenever we're remote with students, but it's been useful to me during the current time, which we are currently in person with our students. We are crossing our fingers, and our goal is to keep that up all year long if we possibly can. We have also used it some with our staff, just communicating. In the spring, our high school principal put all of our junior high and high school staff into a Google Classroom. And that was a really useful way even to just touch base. He would say, okay, I'm thinking about this. Everybody weigh in on this discussion. In Google Classroom, it was a very neatly organized and threaded discussion. And I felt like that was a better way to handle that than through email, where people are replying and they're replying to all, and they're accidentally replying to all when maybe they really shouldn't have, and all of that kind of mess that can happen. So it actually worked great for staff communications. We were still doing Google Meet sessions, but kind of in between, he was getting some feedback. And so it worked great for that. I think it could work well for professional development and training your staff. I used it in the spring. I ran 3 different book clubs for kids, and Google Classroom was the perfect format and easy way for us to all get in there together and be able to communicate and choose our book and set our dates and all of that kind of thing. And then, of course, it's great for hybrid and at-home learning as well. So today I'm going to be talking about just some basic features of Google Classroom, how to set up a class, how to get people enrolled in your Google Classroom, creating discussion threads and posting assignments, and how to set up a Google Meet chat. I will also be discussing and demonstrating some digital tools that integrate well with Google Classroom. There are a variety of online tools, but there's an actual Google Classroom button, and it just connects straight in there, and it's really handy. So some things like Kahoot, Quizzes, Flipgrid, Quizlet, Pear Deck. And then there are also a lot of other online activities that it just work really well with Google Classroom. They don't necessarily have a special integration, but Google Classroom is a really easy way to share a link and say, go online and do this, and then comment, what did you find out? So that's kind of the rundown of what I'm going to be talking about today. This presentation that you're seeing in front of you on a screen is a website that I've made. I like to do kind of an outline for my presentation, and then I just walk through all of that. And then at the end of the presentation today, I will give you the URL for this website, so you can go back and reread anything that you would like, take a look at any of the links that you're interested in, look at any of the documents that were posted and things like that. When I prepare a presentation, I think of it kind of as a buffet. What I'm going to talk to you about today kind of gives you a rundown, kind of a show and tell, and then there will be a lot of links and other resources embedded. So later on, if one of those resources sounds extra good to you, you can come back to the website, dig into that link, and get a little bit more information. There are tons of resources and tutorials about using Google Classroom on YouTube, and there are some really, really excellent ones. So I posted one that I thought was very popular and I thought it gave good information. So there's no need for me to recreate the wheel or to create from scratch a whole tutorial, because there are a lot of really, really excellent ones. So I posted a few that I have found helpful, and some articles about apps and things that integrate well with Google Classroom. What I'm going to do next is walk through this slideshow, and I took some screenshots of some classes that I've had in Google Classroom. I wanted to put it into a slideshow because Google Classroom includes a student's first and last name. So I put it into slides so that I could cross out the student's full name. So you might see some first names, but I wanted to try to follow the rules with protecting student privacy, but still let you get a little snapshot into Google Classroom if you haven't seen it. So when I log in to Google Classroom, this is kind of my home base of my classes, and it will include any classes that I am enrolled in. Like, for example, last spring, I was in the class that our high school principal asked us to join. And then it will also have any classes that I am teaching. So I teach a 6th grade reading group. That's what this first one is, where we just finished reading A Long Way from Chicago and had a lot of fun with that book. And then I have classes for each of my grade level library groups, and we use Google Classroom with 3rd grade and up. Creating a class or joining a class is so simple. There's a little plus at the top, and here in a few minutes, I'll walk through and I'll create a sample classroom. You can create a class just with a few clicks. It's really quite simple, or you can join a class, and I think that's the easiest way. There's a special code that you get when you create a class, and then I simply have my students open Google Classroom, click on the plus, join a class, they put in that code, and they're in my classroom. So I don't have to type in each student individually. There is the option that you can invite students through their email, but I've just been having them join it through the code. And then I like it because it's less work for me. A really quick and easy process. Once I get inside of my Google Classroom, I really like that it's really streamlined and simple. So they have kind of 4 different tabs up here across the top. The first one is Stream. And so that's where you can make announcements. You can decide whether you want your students to be able to post things or reply to things in the stream or not. So some teachers want to use it just for announcements, and then whenever you make an assignment, that pops up in the stream. Or sometimes I use that as a place where students could ask questions as well. So this is an example. I had a virtual book club for middle school in the spring, and this is where we were kind of discussing what book do we want to do for our book club. And everyone can post in here. You can have an online discussion and see what the other people are saying and reply to them. When I click on people, it will show me all of the students that have enrolled in this class. If I decide I want to email them, I could click on, if I just wanted to email Jeremiah and Zane, I could click the boxes in front, and then it's going to pop up in my email and I can send something to them. Or if I want to email all of those kids at once, I can click this box. So that makes it really simple to be able to email people. Kids also have the option, if they want to add their parents' names in there, then parents can get notifications as well. If you are doing an assignment, I love how this keeps track of, at the time I took this screenshot, I had 5 students that had turned in this assignment and 4 of them for whom it was missing. And it tells me right over here, these are the kids that turned it in. These are the kids that have not. So one of my assignments in this reading club was just an optional thing that we did in the spring, and kids could join or not, but I had a handful of kids that did, and we had fun doing a weekly activity during remote learning. So I gave them the assignment, access some of our school's Destiny Discover ebooks or audiobooks, tell about 1 or more interesting books that you found, give me a title and tell why you chose it. And so they could answer that down below. And you can choose to either let the students see each other's replies or not. I turned it on for this because I wanted them to kind of be able to recommend and suggest, oh, here's something that I found, maybe you would like to read that too. Now, if I wanted to, I could ask this question on the stream page, but I like asking it underneath an assignment for a couple of reasons. One is that it's going to keep any conversation we have about Destiny Discover ebooks right here all in this same thread. The other thing it does is it lets me keep track of who has turned that in and who has not. So what I've been doing for library, when I create an assignment, I don't always make it worth points. You can make it worth a certain number of points, or you can say no points. And all I want to measure is participation. Did this student participate and answer this question? That was really my goal. If you are doing something where you are giving grades, Google Classroom will keep a grade book for you. So over here would be where your student name is. Here would be your assignment, and here would be the grades that they received. It will tell you if that assignment did not get turned in for that student. So I know a lot of teachers at our school in the spring, when they were assigning things through Google Classroom, it's very easy to give things a grade and to type in that grade, and here it is right here. They didn't need to keep it in a separate grade book. Then when they were ready to post grades, they just put that final grade into our school's grade book program. When you create a Google Classroom or join a Google Classroom, you are going to have the choice to turn your email notices on or off. This is a screen grab I took from things that were happening in May. So for some of them, I was a student. So when it says new announcement, that means that I was a student in that class and the teacher was making an announcement. My son was a senior last year, and so the teacher who coordinates the senior projects invited parents to join the Google Classroom if they wanted to, because then you know what assignments your kids have and when they're due and who doesn't have them turned in. So that was useful knowledge as a parent. So that's what these announcements are coming from. Then from the teacher's point of view, I am getting if someone submitted something late or if somebody resubmitted something. The other announcement that it gives me is if someone posted something on the stream. And personally, I like that to come to my email box, because a lot of times the student is asking a question if they're posting it on the classroom stream. And this makes sure that I notice it and that I see it. Otherwise, I was afraid if I was juggling several classes, I might miss a question. So my recommendation, if you are choosing to receive emails from your Google Classroom, is to set up an email filter. Our school uses Gmail. And so these are the instructions if you have Gmail as well. If you wanted to set up a filter so that when you are getting those emails from Google Classroom, instead of coming to your inbox, they're going to go into a separate Google Classroom folder. And then I can take a look at that when I have time and when I want to look at it. It's not going in my main inbox where I'm going to see my things maybe that are my more day-to-day and need a more quick response. And this is an example of an email that I got whenever a student had posted something in the stream. And then I could click right on the reply button and reply to what she said. This is a screen grab from creating an assignment. Your assignment can be as simple as asking a question and then people reply below. You can include a link to something. You can create a document where you want students to write out an answer, and then you can go through and grade that. So this is actually an assignment that I gave, I guess it was due 10 days ago. I did this with my 6th grade reading group. And so one of the themes of the book that we were reading was about the challenges and triumphs of growing up. So I wanted them to talk about how that theme was explored through the book we read together. I didn't want students to just post it in comments. I wanted them to do a paragraph form. And so I created a document where I gave them those instructions, and then I gave it the instruction, make a copy for each student. So on their Google Classroom, that would pop up. They're going to type in their response. They're going to turn it into me. And then on the teacher side, I can see every student's response. I can go in and read it, and I can assign it how many points I want to give it out of 20. I can return that to the student, and then they can see what their grade is. So it's very well organized, very intuitive. There's not lots of menus and lots of places to go. It was very easy for me to figure out how to do that. So next, I'm going to walk you through creating a class if you've never done that before. So you can type in classroom.google.com, or if you're signed in and either through your Gmail or if you're just on a Google search page, I can come over here to my waffle, which is where you have all those little squares, and I can see my Google apps. So I can choose Classroom from there, from any of those Google screens. A little bit later, I'm going to talk about Google Meet, which is their video conferencing side of it. And Meet is also an option here underneath my waffle. One thing I learned at some PD this year, which I had never known before, is that you can drag these around and organize this however you want. I didn't realize that. So I was excited to put my favorite things or the things I use more up at the top. I didn't know that I don't have to scroll down every single time. I just love those tiny little hacks that are small, but you just think, oh my gosh, my life just got easier. So I can click on Classroom, and it's going to pull up all of the classes that I have going right now. If I want to start a new class, I can click on my plus and I can say create class. So I'm going to name it. I'm going to call it Practice Classroom. And because when I create a class for students, I'm usually not their only teacher. Instead of section, I like to put my name in there so they can see that that is from me, and I can add those other things if I want or leave them blank, and I can create this class. So then it's going to show up here on my screen. And then if you want, you can change what this blue background, this picture, if you want. But right here up at this top left, it says class code. And there's kind of a box that I can click bigger. So this is the code that my students would type in. Now, you are not going to be able to join my class because you are not part of our school district. Originally, when I signed up to do this presentation, I thought I'll make a practice classroom and then people can join if they want to, because it's helpful to be able to see the student side of things if you haven't. But I found out that that doesn't work. You can also send an invite to people through email, but what I do with my students is I create this and I pull it up. Then I have students open up their Google Classroom. They click on the plus and they say join class, and then there's a place for them to type in the class code. I have to remind them that there are no spaces. Sometimes they want to put spaces in here and it doesn't quite work, but then it's really slick. They type it in and then they're in my class. That will automatically populate and they're going to show up underneath people. When I want to create an assignment, I'm going to come over here to classwork. Oh, first I should say this is your stream, and this is where I can type something in. One thing that's really nice, like you might have seen, I have Google Classrooms for 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade for library class. If I'm making an announcement and I want all of my classes to see it, I can click in here. I want 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, and then I can type it in one time and it will go out to all of those separate classes. I really love that because especially with remote learning, I am doing a lot of the same lessons and activities with multiple groups. So I think that is a really handy thing. I'm going to come over here to classwork. And this is where I can create an assignment. And I can pose a question. I can do a quiz. So I often will do a question. So I might say, visit our school ebook site. Choose an ebook you want to read. Tell the title below. And you can decide if it's going to be a short answer or multiple choice. This is obviously short answer. So again, I can decide, I can assign this to multiple classes at the same time. I only have to type it in one time. I really, really love that feature. I could also, if I'm here in my practice classroom, if I only wanted to assign this to a couple of kids for some reason, then I would be able to do that. Now, right now, I don't have any students enrolled in this class, but if I did, when I clicked on this arrow, all my students would show up, and then I could choose whom I want to assign it to. I can decide, I can type in any number of points that I want it to be worth, or I can decide to make it ungraded. And that's what I do a lot if I'm just wanting participation. I just want them to answer the question, and it's going to show me who turned it in and who did not. I can decide if I want to set a due date of when I would like them to have that finished, and then they will get reminders on that, or they'll see, okay, we would like this to be done by a certain day or time. And you can decide if you want to create a topic and organize things by topics. Personally, I haven't given enough assignments that I felt like I wanted to create topics. And you can decide if you want students to be able to reply to each other, and if you want them to have the option to go back and edit their answer. And then whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and ask it, which means it's going to go ahead and push that out and assign it. I can schedule it, so I can type it today, but really it's not going to go out until Monday, or I can save the draft and come back and work on this later on. So those are the few things that I wanted to show you there in Google Classroom. A few tips. One thing that I've learned whenever we're putting especially younger kids into an online classroom environment is that right up front, I want to give them my guidelines and my expectations for when they are doing an online discussion and posting things. If kids just get in Google Classroom, they might get on and be like, hi, what's up? And just post random things. So before we ever go in, I tell kids that our Google Classroom is an extension of our regular classroom. So we are not going to go on there and post random or unnecessary things. The only time you're going to post something is if you have a question about an assignment, if you are answering something that I have asked you to. And so far, whatever I've given the posting guidelines up front, then the kids were good with that. I talked about this already. If you have a discussion question, you can post it in the class stream. But if I'm wanting to keep track and I want to make sure that all of my students are participating, I love the option of posting it under classwork and making that an assignment. I can easily make it an ungraded assignment, and then Google Classroom is going to keep track of who has answered and who doesn't. And it also is going to keep all my discussions really neatly organized. I talked a little bit also about setting up that email filter, because if you get a lot of Google Classrooms going, it can really overwhelm you with things that are showing up in your inbox. It can be a little bit scary. So, and you do have the option to turn off your email notifications, but I do like to leave mine on because I don't want to miss someone's question or post. So again, this talks you through how to set up that email filter if you're a Gmail user. If you're the teacher, you're going to get an email notice from Google Classroom when a student comments on the stream. If they submit an assignment late, or if they resubmit an assignment, you don't get an email when they just turn in an assignment. You would have to go to that classwork tab to see who's turned it in and who hasn't. Next, I'm going to talk about Google Meet. And this is what our school is using. We haven't been using Zoom. We have been using Meet. It's going to allow you to schedule and run online video conferences, you have the option to record that if you want to. There's 3 ways that I know of to set up a Google Meet. You can use a nickname or a code word, and that can only be used by people in your district. So if I was setting up a Google Meet, I could not give you guys a code word because you're not in my school district. But at school, I can make the code word books. So if we're having a book discussion on Friday at 6 p.m., I can tell my book discussion kids, all right, go to Google Meet, which they can do meet.google.com, or they can go to sign into Google, go to the waffle and pick Google Meet. They're going to type in books and they're going to be in our room. One negative of that is that if students have a nickname, they may be able to go in and the students might be in there when you are not in there. So that's something to watch. I know Google has been doing a lot of updates. I can't remember now. It may be that they have changed it so students can't get in until the teacher has gotten in. I know that there were some recent updates because people were saying, okay, when I leave my chat, then sometimes kids are coming in and just kind of messing around, and we don't really want them to be able to do that. Another option is that within your Google Classroom, it will generate a code that you can use for your Meet. So if I come back here to my practice classroom, I can generate a Meet link, and I can choose to, I can turn it on or toggle it on and off, whether to make that visible to students. So if I told my practice classroom students, we are meeting Monday morning at 10 o'clock, go to our Google Classroom, and then you're just going to click on this Meet link. And then when it's a time when we're not meeting, if I choose to, I could turn that off, and then they wouldn't be able to just click and get into it. You can also schedule it through your calendar. And I have not personally done it that way, especially in the spring when our principals were scheduling staff meetings. They did that through the calendar, and then I would get an email about it. And I liked that a lot for my staff meetings because I could see when it was, and then I could easily find it again in my email to get that link. But I have not personally done that with students. There are lots of online guides and tutorials with using Google Classroom and Google Meet. So I gave a little link for just one that I thought was a good one for Google Meet. Next, I'm going to move on to talking about digital tools. So I picked out a handful of digital tools that either integrate directly into Google Classroom, or I just feel that they simply work really well for online assignments. One thing that's nice is that when things integrate directly with Google Classroom, your students are not going to need another code or login, which is super nice. They log into that Google Classroom, they click on your link, and they are in that resource. So it's fewer steps, and I think that just makes it really nice. So over here on the left, I have picked out some digital tools that I'm going to talk a little bit about. And then over here on the right in this blue box where it says try it out, later on, if you want to try out some of these things, you could use this link to try some of these digital tools. Kahoot and Quizzes are both online quizzes. Students can compete and they get really excited about it. And if you want high student engagement, these are excellent tools. I have used Kahoot more often than Quizzes. Kahoot has a free version, and then of course you can pay for upgrades. So I've just been using the free version. One thing that I've noticed lately in Kahoot is that, let's say I have a class of students, maybe 20 students who are getting on Kahoot and they're doing a quiz. I can see maybe the top, I can definitely see the top 3 kids, but I can't see how every student ranked and what percentage they got correct. In Quizzes, I can get a report that shows every student, what was their percentage correct, how did they do. I can still do that for free. In Kahoot, you have to pay to get that extra feature. So both of these have a lot of quizzes available. You can either create your own quiz over whatever topic you want, or you can search for a quiz that someone else has created. And there are lots of great things on there that would be good for library, literacy related, all kinds of good things. For both of these, you have two options. Kids can play live, or you can set up, you're setting up the quiz that you want them to do, and then you can give them the link, like you could post it in Google Classroom, and then they don't all have to be doing the quiz at the same time. So they're still competing against each other, which they love that aspect of it. They want to, to be the highest on the leaderboard and to give the best answers and to do that correctly. But they can all do it individually on their own time. And then you can still see how they did, and there's still going to be a winner named and that kind of thing. Quizlet is a resource that gives you online flashcards. Flipgrid is another one that's really popular. That's where you can post a question and then people can get on an answer just using a short video. Padlet is probably one of my favorites. It is an online bulletin board. You can type things, you can post a photo or a video. You can set it if you want, so there's no login required. It's really easy to use. I've used it with second grade all the way up through adults. The links that are over here on the left would take you to the page where it's telling you kind of teacher information about this is what this resource is, this is how you use it, this is how you do your free sign up. I'm going to show you a page that I made for the teachers at my school when we were talking about Padlet. So you are welcome to try this out and add something, but we were doing it, I think, in August, and this has been a couple of years ago now, but I encouraged them to post something about their summer. So a lot of them used their phone and jumped on here and posted some cute pictures of their kids and their grandkids and places that they visited this summer. But what I love about Padlet is down here in the bottom right corner is this pink circle, and you just click on the plus. And so it's adding a new tile, I guess, to this online bulletin board. I can type something in. I could upload something like a picture or a document. I can include a link to an online resource. I can take a photo using my web camera. I can film something right from my camera. You can draw. It's just really, really versatile. So I've loved it because sometimes I'll have students do a project and then I want to post it online so they can see each other's. And so before Padlet, sometimes I had to do the work of finding a place. Maybe I was posting it on our website and I would get everybody's link from their project and then I had to link it. This lets each student do that. So I like that a lot. So I feel like it is really versatile. Another thing that I wanted to mention is when I look at technology tools, sometimes it's easy to feel overwhelmed. You think, oh my gosh, there's all this new technology and I really need to be using it. And so it feels overwhelming because there are so many. Something that I have tried is saying to myself, this fall, I'm going to pick one of these resources and I'm going to use it. So there was one fall where I picked Padlet and each of my classes did something with Padlet. So I didn't feel like I had to use all of these, every 9 weeks or every month. That feels really overwhelming. Pick one of these tools, give it a try, use it with a lot of groups. And then maybe later on, you might want to try another one. So that to me makes it feel a little less overwhelming.
Amy, we do have a question in the chat. It says, do they have to have Flipgrid account already set up or do you know?
I believe with Flipgrid that when I'm posting it in their Google Classroom, that it goes directly through there and that they don't have to sign in. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm getting ready to do it with some students next week, so then I'll know a little bit more. So that's a great question, and it's Flipgrid is one of those that's been on my list. I want to use it with students, so next week I'm going to be giving it a try. Is there anyone who has used Flipgrid and can answer that question? Okay, I'm going to keep right
Yeah,
on
I
going.
don't see anyone typing, so keep going.
Okay, and thanks for letting me know about the question in the chat, because that's just too much for me to try to keep track of that. So I appreciate that. Next on my list is another one that's kind of new to me, and I haven't used it with students yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that in the future, and it's called Pear Deck. So Pear Deck is an add-on to Google Slides, and it adds interactive elements to it. So I could use that with students that are in the room with me. It could be students that are at home. It could be a mix, right? Because you may be like my district, that we have kids that are in person, but we also have students that have either opted to be at home remotely, or we have kids moving in and out of quarantine. So we are teaching to kids in the room and kids at home through technology at the same time. So a lot of these online things would let kids at home participate right along with the kids in your classroom as well. So Pear Deck adds an interactive element. So as you're presenting on something, you might have students type in a response to something. And then as the teacher, you'll have a dashboard where you can see all of the things that they typed in. Or it might be a multiple choice question. And so you can see how they answered and who answered it correctly. You could use it kind of as an exit ticket at the end of a lesson. So there's a lot of good options with that. So it's one that I haven't explored much yet, but I sure would like to. Our state library provides so many excellent resources, including EBSCO databases, which I'm really thankful for. So at the school level, we use the Explora databases. And when you go into those articles, there is a little Google Classroom button. You can share it directly from Explora into your Google Classroom. So that would be a great way to assign an article to kids that you want them to read. Epic ebooks, which are free for elementary students. It's pre-K through 6th grade. Student accounts can be really easily created by connecting Google Classroom. So if you already have a Google Classroom set up and you're wanting to set up a class with Epic ebooks, that will save time. Those can integrate together, and then you don't have to type in all of those student accounts separately. What I have next is just pulled together some activity ideas for Google Classroom. Once again, so many people have been really generous in sharing online ideas that they have. And sometimes I feel kind of overwhelmed, like, wow, there are so many good options. I just really need to focus and choose something here. So I picked some of my favorites. Some of them are ones I have used. Some of them are on my, hey, I definitely want to do that sometime soon list. And then I also included a list of things activities that I did do with my students this past spring with remote learning. So this document that I just pulled up is embedded here on the website. And you can click this enlarge button, and then you can download it or print it or save it or whatever you would like to do. I am a really big fan of librarian Shannon McClintock Miller, and she creates really amazing activities and is very generous in sharing them. So this first one is a Destiny collection that she put together with online read alouds. So I know that's a really big thing. And then along with the online read alouds, we are trying really hard to follow those copyright laws. So everything that she's put in here is put up by either a publisher or the author or illustrator. So when I'm coming to these resources, I don't have to think, okay, is this following copyright? Am I setting a good example for my kids? Here is a great list of things that would be good to use with your students. So that's really amazing. I love it when people create things like this and are very generous to share. Shannon McClintock Miller also has shared some of her choice boards that she's made. Those have been really popular with remote learning, where you're putting up an interactive board and students get to choose things. Hers are not just useful, but visually very beautiful. So she created a Padlet where she is sharing those. So you can not only access them, but you can also make a copy, and then you can edit it and kind of customize it for your students. So she did one for October. And there might be things like read alouds, there might be a guided reading activity. This one is a breakout EDU, so it's kind of a problem solving activity, all kinds of things. So that's a really great resource. I've talked a little bit about Padlet already. I'll share one that I did a while back with some 5th graders. It's just a very simple idea. I wanted them to share a book that they really love. So it could be a book they read when they were much younger. It could be a more recent book. So I had them write about their book and then include a picture, and then they can read each other's. And so it's kind of a way for them to recommend books to each other. So that was just a really simple way to use Padlet, but the kids had a lot of fun doing that. Taking a virtual field trip can be a really fun thing to do. Bound to Stay Bound this spring put together a really cool resource where they've listed all kinds of virtual tours. So they have it kind of organized into arts and culture. So you're going to see all museums, NASA, just all kinds of things. If you scroll down, you're going to find webcams. My students think it is the best thing ever if we find a zoo webcam, and oh my gosh, what are the elephants doing? We are so excited to see what they're doing. So this could be a lot of fun. You could assign them to take a virtual field trip to the Cincinnati Zoo, for example. You might ask them to write about, or they could write about what they saw, or they could record a response in Flipgrid. I really like the option of Flipgrid because I have some students that struggle with writing. They understand the ideas, but typing something out or handwriting something out is difficult for them for a variety of reasons. So I really like the Flipgrid option where they can just speak and tell me their ideas.
We did have an answer to the question in our chat, Amy, and it was from Elizabeth. And she did share that they didn't need to have an account already set up, but then she also went on to share, also to add to the Flipgrid question. When I looked at my Google Chrome with the Flipgrid, what I noticed was that it had a student sign in with Google. So it was an automatic type login. If you're not a Gmail school, your procedure might be different.
Great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I appreciate that. So there's lots of fun ones with aquariums and zoo cameras and things like that. You could even add a research element. So kids could pick one of these animals and they could do some research and share what they've learned. There are a lot of great ones with national parks, right? So at a time when we're staying home more than usual, I love thinking of the idea that we're using the internet to explore our world, even when we have to stay at home. So lots of fun ideas there with virtual tours. A digital breakout would be another option. So this is where students are doing some problem solving and they're solving puzzles and codes to try to reach an end. And students really enjoy this a lot. One resource that I've been using for the past 2 years with my 6th grade that we've loved so much is called Biblionasium. And it is a free resource. It's basically like Goodreads for kids. So Goodreads is a site where you can go on and search for books and you can see people can rate them and write reviews and things like that. And so and you can also, if you want, create an account so you can see what your friends are reading and keep track of your books and have your own bookshelf and things like that if you want to. So Biblionasium is like Goodreads for kids. A teacher is going to create your account. So it's kind of like a social network for books, only it's only kids that I create the account for that can see each other's information. So it's like a closed social network. So I create an account for all of our 6th graders so they can go on, they can create a visual bookshelf that shows books that they've liked, books that they've enjoyed, and then they can see each other's. And so it's safe because it's not people outside of our school or outside of our district. Nobody else can see in on their bookshelves. And I've heard kids have a lot of really good discussions with each other about books. They can write reviews, they can recommend things to each other. If you want, you can keep a reading log, and you can, as a teacher, you can set up a reading challenge if you want. I haven't done that. I've let kids create a bookshelf and write reviews, but they have a whole lot of fun with it. And I think it's a great way to encourage reading and to kind of get them excited about it. Another activity that my kids really love is creating stop motion animation using Google Slides. So this website from Ditch That Textbook walks them through. You can just give them this link and they can follow along. And it is a whole lot of fun. They love to do this. So I wanted to share with you, one of my 5th graders created this project. So this is his stop motion animation. So I'm opening his Google Slides, and then I'm going to hit present, and then I have to use my arrow to arrow through it. So I'm using my arrow, so it's going through all of his slides here. So it looks like animation. There's got to be an explosion. He had so much fun doing this. I thought the next step could be, it would be cool if we could do a screencast. So then it would create a video file of that. So I'm hoping next time we'll have time to add that option, or maybe import it into something where they could add music or sound effects or things like that. But the students absolutely love this, and it's really easy to get them started as long as they have Google Slides. And then there are a couple of other links there. This last page are activities that I used with my 5th grade through 8th grade students. This was optional. Kids that were interested could join my Google Classroom and complete these activities. But they could be really simple, and it was just a fun way to keep connected with them. We had an easy mode of communication. Then if they said, okay, Mrs. Brownlee, I just finished book 1 of the selection series. I'm needing book 2. Our school library isn't open. Can you help me find an ebook? Where can I find this? We already had a line of communication open, and so that was easy to kind of meet them where they were and help them out with that. So this is just a little description of the things that we did. And I can see that our time is about up. So I'm going to say thank you all for coming and for listening.
Can we get you to share the link in the chat just so that people could save that, if that's okay?
Yes. So it's abprez.weebly.com, and then you're going to click the classroom tab, but let me come up here and copy this.
It also lives on the conference website. So
why am I so gullible?
Those links are available.
Well, I have this stuff minimized, and now I have to figure out how to go to the chat. I'm feeling a little remedial
That's okay.
here.
It's just along your bottom tool, like the toolbar. If you kind of just put your cursor along the bottom, the chat should pop up there at the bottom. It says participants.
My hamster pickles likes them. There's a dolphin.
That's okay. We can share it later.
Okay.
No
For some reason,
problem.
I don't see chat. I see participants. I see polls. I see share.
It should be on the website right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right there.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Oh,
That's okay.
can I get to it?
Thank you, Michael.
You will always miss your crossbow shot. Bet you'll never catch me. I already caught you.
Okay, I stopped sharing my screen, and now I can see it.
Michael helped you out too. He put it in there for you, so.
Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't see.
Sometimes it's just easier, so I thought if it was able to be done, it's sometimes nice. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
just want to mention, piggybacking on that, that if you missed any sessions that you want to watch in this room or any other, there should be links to the recordings coming up probably the beginning of next week, and those will be online, as well as a lot of the PowerPoints and handouts will be available via that site too. And I don't think KLA has any plans to take those links down. So they'll be sitting there for a while for you to refer to and to listen to and to digest. Thank you, Amy. As usual, that was wonderful. And I think it's been a very